This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. You're listening to Lansing Online News Radio, our radio show for Lansing Online News with Bonnie Bucqueroux and Bill Castanier. We're here every Monday night at 7 o'clock on LCC Radio, and it's good to see you, Bill. I guess you've got a couple announcements for us coming up?
At least one.
At least one.
One is I'm glad I wasn't up at Sleeping Bear Dunes yesterday.
Ooh.
Oh boy.
Do you see the picture of the what happened on the bridge as well?
Yep.
There are plenty of places I'm glad I wasn't.
The photograph of that cloud formation coming in was one of the scariest things I've ever seen.
You know, last night it rumbled and rumbled, but I didn't get that much. How about you?
We had quite a bit of rain.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, probably an inch.
Huh.
A lot of lightning, but
Exciting.
sporadic.
Oh, there's no climate change, no problem. Nothing to see here, move along.
Yeah, move along, girls and boys. What's coming up is this Thursday, the Historical Society of Greater Lansing is doing a walking tour in the west side of Lansing, and it's particularly going to talk about locations that are important in the African American history.
Oh, really? Oh, cool.
So there's several things that will be highlighted. I'd just talk about one is the transformation of Lansing and the African American neighborhoods by I-496, which cut right through the middle of it. Closed 35 streets, took out 820 homes. There was both a good and a bad outcome of that. Before that, Lansing was incredibly segregated. This required people to have segregated neighborhoods because they had to move somewhere.
Right.
When they did that, though, that created white flight.
Right.
So it took about almost 15 years after that, so this would have been the mid-60s to the late 60s. It took another 15 to 20 years, really, before Lansing kind of settled in with integrated neighborhoods.
What year was that 496?
496 started in 66. They tore the houses down in 67, and by 68, parts of it were open. By 70, it was all open.
Because they moved here in 70, and it was just a new thing, and people were trying to adjust to it. It seems to have caused a lot of chaos in the community when it happened.
It did, absolutely. One of the things I found out today is one of the first things that happened to the Highway Department in building I-496 was it was the first organized dispute of taking out a neighborhood. And it went to
Really?
it went to the Civil Rights Commission, but of course they lost, that it wasn't discriminatory.
I ended up moving here and living in one of the homes that was from the displacement caused by 496.
Most of them they tore down, but for some reason they saved 33 homes. I found that out today too.
4 of them were moved out to Williamston. I lived on the home on the corner of Zimmer and Lynn, owned by a farmer who bought, maybe it was only 3 of them. He bought at least 3 of them and moved them out to the property, hooked them up, and then had rental units out there. So that was what they did with those displaced homes. But I understood that most of them were just simply torn down.
Cranes came in and ripped them down.
There was that era, I think, which is so unfortunate when we look back at it. It began with the Eisenhower era after World War II, where there was this thought that what they were then calling in Cleveland, for example, the inner belt freeways, and then build the interstate highway, that it would lead to all of this growth and production. And it did, but it also led to a lot of unfortunate unintended consequences, such as white flight, such as urban sprawl, all sorts of difficulties with the decaying urban core, lots of, there was good news, bad news, and a lot of redlining went on at the same time.
Absolutely, and people made poor assumptions. One of the assumptions was that highways would bring people into the cities.
No.
They go both ways. It was, people left the cities for the suburbs. It was...
Well, my father, for example, was persuaded, he was the supervisor of a steel improvement and forge in Cleveland. He was persuaded that the Ruskies in the 50s were going to nuke all the cities in the U.S., and so he was sure Cleveland was on the list. So he moved us, it was about an hour and 15-minute commute in the morning and the evening. And that's that just adds a lot to your day. You take out 2.5 hours.
Where did he live, Monroe?
Oh, well, no, we lived out in Burton, Ohio, which was way outside.
That's way out.
Yeah, I know, it was bad. But he figured, he checked to see how far he thought the fallout would get. So, it was either that or build a bunker.
So he was an optimist.
He was
yeah, you could look at it that way. I'm going to live. I'll build. Our house in Lansing, when we moved in, had a partially completed fallout
Did it really?
shelter. Right. They never finished it. And they had this odd idea. They put a bathroom in the basement, but that wasn't in the fallout shelter. So they had this odd idea they were going to leave the fallout shelter for a short time to go to the bathroom and then come back.
What?
These were not clever people.
Had they seen Hiroshima?
I don't.
You'd be a giant charcoal briquette on the way out.
And the only thing we inherited, it was falling, the driveway was falling through into the fallout shelter, so we filled it with
Wow.
sand.
Oh, that's just awful.
Lovely times.
So now, if I were going on this, it would be called the hobbling tour of Lansing, but it is the walking tour of Lansing.
Yeah, we kind of got off.
We got off track there.
It is at 7 p.m. It is Thursday, August 6th, and meeting at the church that's really right in the center of Martin Luther King, down by Kalamazoo. There's a church right there, and it's called Union Missionary Baptist Church. It's a new church. That's another thing that MLK, when they redid it, took out probably 100 homes.
Oh.
When they tore down all the homes around the Capitol for expansion, that took another 600 homes. We were really good at this.
Of urban renewal.
Urban renewal.
Yes, and I saw what it meant in our city in Cleveland, which was the building of public housing, and they would build these large Levittown type, they weren't tract homes, they were these large public housing facilities, so that I could have employment years later, back in the early 1990s, going out to all the public housing developments when we were trying to do anti-violence training for community policing, because they were not good ways for people to live. They ended up becoming ghettoized and causing all kinds of problems for the people who lived there, and it was really a disaster. I spent a lot of time in Cabrini Green and Robert Holmes, Taylor Homes in Chicago, and Red Hook out in New Jersey. A lot of different. We did 60 different public housing developments across the country. It's very interesting to see what may happen now with recent Supreme Court decisions, because they're urging more scattered site, low-income housing, and we'll see whether that ever happens. That's been a real fight in this country for a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
You've done a lot of work in that area.
We wanted to keep poor people where they should be.
Yeah. So you'll be doing a walking tour.
We're going to be doing a walking tour. It's the first one of this type we've done. We hope to continue more of these. We're going to point out, for example, a couple homes that were in the Green Book. And if people haven't heard of the Green Book, it was a travel book exclusively for African Americans.
Oh.
Where they could find a safe place to stay as they were traveling, because they couldn't stay in motels or hotels.
Yeah, it was really dicey.
So they'd look it up and go to a city, and they'd look up, and they were generally private residences where they'd rent a room.
Wow, so it was the early bed and breakfast, but interesting. Wow.
And it was a Green Book, an entire
That's kind
book.
of a hidden history you're doing.
Yeah, we hope to do that. I mean, we hope to
Mm-hmm.
find things that people aren't talking about, but because it's hidden, that means that there's not a lot of history.
I should tell
A lot of
our-
digging
Yeah,
that
you
needs
just
to be done.
can't find these stories. You figure, okay, I-496 was 50 years ago. The people that lived in those houses were probably in their 30s and 40s.
Oh,
Yeah.
They're dead
then.
or very old. Yeah, it's difficult to recreate that history and what went on.
It's so hard to capture those stories in time, and it's really important that we start doing so. Maybe with the cell phone camera we'll do a little better in the future, I hope.
If somehow those get loaded somewhere, it'll be incredible.
Right, right.
Yeah, we're going to tell a documentary story that's unlike any other.
Well, you're listening to LCC
What I had
Radio,
for supper.
WLNZ, 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. And if you want additional information on the walking tour, they can go to the lansinghistory.org site.
Yes,
And that will give people information about that.
right, where to meet and how long it'll last, things like that.
Well, joining us for our conversation this evening, we have two local creatives here. We have Michael McCallum, who is the filmmaker that many of you are familiar with, and Dave Olds, who's going to be talking to us about two things, which is that he had a long and distinguished career with the Lansing State Journal, and he's helping the Historical Society find the pictures that they need for their upcoming show on photography this fall. But he'll also be talking about his book reading that he's doing this week. But I wanted to start with Michael because you are starting some Kickstarters, right?
Yes, actually, this will be my third Kickstarter that I've started. Previously, we did one for a short film called Sure Thing that was in 2013, and then Buffalo,
Yeah.
my latest feature film that's currently on the festival circuit, and that premiered last year in 2014. So this Kickstarter, we're in the final stages of putting it together. It takes a lot of time doing
It does,
the
doesn't it?
video, the editing, laying in some stills, and then going through on the site and putting all the rewards in. It takes a lot of time. There's a lot of steps to be done that people don't really assume when they go to that site and start browsing. but it's going to be for my next 2 short films, Two for the Show and Confidence of a Tall Man. So both are pretty heavy dramas, completely different storylines, and hoping to have both of those done sometime this next year. Two for the Show will come out hopefully by September.
Oh, wow,
and we'll
that's
do a
great.
showing soon, and then Confidence of a Tall Man will be released next year, next spring.
So these films have been shot, but now you're raising money for the
Yes.
post-production.
Completely. They're both shot, and Two for the Show is all cut together. It's at sound editing at River City Studios in Grand Rapids currently, and then Confidence of a Tall Man is about a third of the way through the editing process, so there's still a lot to do there.
So you're taking the time to do a few teaser-type clips, I'm assuming, from both films.
Yes, well, what we're going to do is we have a teaser trailer for Two for the Show, which stars myself, Liz Nolan, and Dennis Link, who is also in Sure Thing in Buffalo, and is one of the owners of Stober's Bar, which is kind of funny. So I pulled him in front of the camera. He's used to being on the security camera, but now he's in front of a motion picture camera. But so yeah, it's a story basically about my character coming back into town to see his ailing father, who's in a home hospice situation, and he finds out that the hotel that he's staying in is servicing his high school reunion.
Oh.
So he ends up meeting this couple there, and the wife is being really abused by her husband, and he steps in.
Ooh.
And I will leave it there.
Now, is the ailing father that we have seen in other films? Is it William McCallum?
Yes,
again?
William C. McCallum stepped in and played
Ah.
that role. It's a very small part. He's in it very briefly, but I act so well off the guy. It's pretty simple.
This father and son collaboration, I think, is just wonderful.
A clever idea.
Step
It is.
aside, Houstons.
Oh, yes, right, yes. But Buffalo has been doing extremely well.
Extremely well,
Tell
yeah.
me some of the recent awards it's won.
It just played at the Global Film Awards, Independent Film Awards, and it was nominated for 13 awards and won 5 out of the 13.
Wow.
So it won Best Feature. It
Whoa.
was nominated for Best Drama. It won Best Supporting Actress for Barb Dahlman, who plays the bar owner in the film, Ginger, and then it won a Humanitarian Award and an Independent Spirit Award and a Best Screenplay Award.
Fantastic. Wow, that's excellent.
Yeah, it was really cool. Cody Mazalkowski and Eric Keener were both nominated for Best Supporting Actor noms for their characters in the film, and it was up for Best Ensemble Cast, Best Director for myself. So it's done really well. It's gotten into 5 festivals. It's won 9 awards, and it has 18 nominations.
It's done so well. How can people see it now? People that want
Yeah,
to see
if they're interested, they can go to buffalothemovie.com or rebelpictures.net, and there are links right on both those sites that will take you to the Amazon Prime site that you can rent it right on Amazon Prime. You can also search on Amazon Prime, and also a link to Vimeo on demand that you can rent the film there as well.
That's interesting. I would really like to ask you, in comparing those two services,
Sure.
which one has worked better for you, the Amazon Prime or the Vimeo On Demand?
It's so soon we can't even tell.
Oh, okay.
Yet.
So you've just done this.
Yeah, it's been since maybe the last month and a half, 2 months.
Oh,
so
okay. All right.
Nothing's really out yet. Those votes haven't been tallied, as they would say. So we're gonna just keep getting them out there on both those sites. The hard part independently is you just want to try, if you can get it into one of those venues, is just to be able to try to get it out as long as possible for people to see it. All my other work independently did so well on the festival circuit, but when Fairview Street came out, that was January 2009.
Yes.
And there was no platforms like that. It's completely different now.
Well, that's what I wondered about, because, I'm looking more and more. Amazon Prime, I think, was wonderful. Vimeo On Demand. Vimeo always had the reputation of being sort of the much better reproduction quality than, for example, YouTube.
Yes, yeah.
The sort of the aficionado filmmakers always went there to watch each
Yeah.
other's work. But now that they're allowing you to do your own on demand, you can kind of set your own rates too, right? For rentals and purchase and
You
all
can. Well, what happened with this was I've reached out to some of those companies in the past, and we had representation for Buffalo. It played at the DIY Film Festival in Santa Monica. in April, and it won Best Narrative Feature there. So it was kind of cool. This was a festival that they kind of their guidelines are for films that are made for $250,000 or less. So it won Best Narrative Feature there. And one of the sponsors to the festival, Kino Nation, is a company that they're located right in Santa Monica. The president of the company, Roger Jackson, was there, loved the film, and we talked, had a phone conversation because I couldn't make it to Santa Monica to support the movie. Thankfully, he was serious enough with all the winners to talk with them about potential video-on-demand distribution, and gave some suggestions on tweaking the log line to the poster, and there she is. He got behind the film and helped sell it and promote it to those two platforms.
How do you keep the buzz going for a film like that?
That's interesting.
What I've done is, and I wouldn't recommend this, but I've taken my soul and I've kind of chopped it up into little small parts. So I don't
sold a piece to the
Right, I
devil.
don't just do the whole thing, Bill, right at once. I mean, that's just dumb.
If the devil asks, you
right,
parse it out.
I got parts of it gone. So to get it finished, no, it's just the buzz is. I was joking with a filmmaker buddy the other night that it's equivalent to the guy who used to be on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson spinning the plates. That's what it is spinning all the plates to get that recognition. It's doing first and foremost the absolute best work you can do. Nobody wants to hear the scheduling conflicts, the budgetary limitations. I really feel as independent artists, especially filmmakers, we need boundaries. There's enough of them that happen naturally. So it's doing the best work you can possibly do, and then just continuing to get the work out there, using and utilizing social media, because we don't have a lot of money. We don't have of finances to shoot out promotional materials. So, and then it's getting it into the festivals.
I think that's the toughest part, is doing your own promo, because the reality is, Bill, people produce wonderful things. They're then constantly looking for the budget to be able to do the next wonderful thing. But in between, you have to be marketing that thing that you've done.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that always gets
Incessantly.
lost.
Yeah, incessantly.
And independently, we don't have huge teams of people doing that.
No.
I'm doing a majority of that myself with a small group of other people. So, and it's really trying to just get it out there. It's out of our control what it does on the festival circuit, but if you feel passionately about what you do and you feel strongly about it, you get it out there, and hopefully there'll be other people that are attracted to it as well. And that's happened with all the other films. So, Rebel Pictures, just recently we had our 50th award won from all the projects that we've done. So it's changed so quickly in even the last month or so with these last awards for Buffalo. We're up to 57 awards, 98 nominations, and 95 film festivals, statewide, nationally, internationally. So I feel pretty good about that. That's a good
Have you ever
validation.
considered doing commercial work?
Of course, yeah. I would.
Yeah.
I've done
As sort of a filler.
multitude of stuff as an actor, but as a production company, I would like to do more of that. It's difficult work sometimes to break into because there's a multitude of companies in the area, and I'm not going to plug them right now. So,
Smart move.
yeah, Mama didn't raise no fool.
I forgot what their names are.
Yeah, but it's hard to break in there. They have established brick and mortar buildings, so we're working. Rebel Pictures is very nomadic. We're essentially wherever I am and my crew and editors are is where Rebel Pictures
Well, you
is.
look
So.
at Nomadic Works. The Tiger's new pitcher lives in his van.
Well, and I was telling
And
you,
that's on purpose.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like, really? That's kind of cool.
I have friends who do international contracts. They happen to live in Chicago, where people have they speak all these different languages. So that if you're, for example, trying to get hold of somebody on a telephone tree in Singapore, chances are the person you're listening to on that thing when you're on hold is one of the voices that they're doing. Right?
Oh, yeah.
And they're doing it out of their home. And these multinational companies have no idea they're dealing with
No, they have no clue. No clue.
No, so it's really kind of fascinating. You can do that more and more nowadays.
You can. I think just with how everything is with social media and the internet, you can really do anything to get the word out there.
The challenge to me, I think, and what's people need to do a better job of aggregating the best films into some kind of showcase that I can go to. Amazon Prime to me is too large. I can't bend my way through.
Where do you even start?
Vimeo is too large. There's too many films for me. What I need is somebody who curates them and maybe does something like a Michigan Film Festival site and pulls the best ones and sends me the links to them and that kind of thing.
There used to be a festival that did that. They you could have each festival in the state would submit I believe 1 to 2 works to them.
Oh,
and then that festival would have kind of a best of, quote unquote. So, but it's hard to
I'd just
maintain
love to see
those.
one that's all online,
Yeah,
because as these films, I mean, there's this weird circuit that I don't think most outsiders realize, that you can't just release a film on YouTube if it's in the festival circuit, because they want that kind of exclusivity. They don't want people to be able to watch it on YouTube that night because it rained.
And some things have changed a little bit. I think I still feel personally a lot of narrative work is that way. Now, there's some other things too that still fall under narrative work, but music videos. I've done 2 music videos. They're online for free. They still get into festivals. Because I think at some point they realize they're going to be up. They still want to showcase it with a group of other videos or short pieces or in front of a feature. And Lucky J, the web series that I starred in through Grand Valley State University's
Great
summer
series.
film. Thank you so much.
That was really good.
Harper
Really
Philbin did a wonderful job, the director, with that. But that's online, available to just be viewed, all 7 parts for free.
It's a fantastic deal.
And you can go to luckyjseries.com. But that just got into its first film festival. They sent it to the Miami Web Fest, and it's going to play in Miami end of September, early October. So they accepted it, knowing that it's already online. So I think
WebFest may be a different animal.
it might be. I think a lot of the web material, they're assuming that it's already out in the world. But you can also go to this venue and see it with, other works and also hopefully the ambiance of the place, as well as maybe what they want to pull you into that experience.
But then some of us think about Colorado and Lafayette, Louisiana, and say, maybe I'll stay home and watch them on my own little machine. I don't know.
Yeah. That's
that joy of watching it with other people has gone downhill in the last few years.
Big time. I have no patience for that anymore.
It's also very expensive.
It is,
That as
isn't
well.
it?
If you buy popcorn.
Well, of course, they probably don't they break even on the films, but they make the money on the concessions?
All on the concessions.
Yeah.
I know that's a majority of where they pull in.
Is that $82?
The city, there used to be 100 businesses north of Michigan on Washington.
Yeah.
They're all gone.
Yeah.
There's not one. I mean, they tore everything down.
Wow.
Now LCC's there now, but still, there was an amazing number of little businesses.
And it's
kinda
weird
sad.
too when you go to Ann Arbor, like going through downtown Ann Arbor, there's so many cool little shops, and the downtown always seems really thriving. And I talked to a friend who used to go to school down there, and he was like, yeah, if you look, there's not a lot of chains in the downtown. There's a Starbucks, but everything else is kind of on the outskirts, where downtown here, there's all chains. I mean, how many sub shops does one
Zingerman
3 block?
started in an old home, but
Yeah.
we got rid of all those old homes and went for the sort of corporate look instead, which is too bad. I'm always amused when I hear college students comparing things like, oh, well, we should go to Qdoba. As they were reviewing Qdoba's as if it were an independent restaurant, you know what I mean?
Yes, that's when you hang your
The menu's
head.
identical no matter
Yeah.
whether you're here or in New Jersey.
Drop the head
They're-
in shame.
Yes,
right there
yes,
is
that kind
when.
of thing. So it's
Why is
always
Bonnie
been-
weeping to herself right now?
sobbing in the
it's-
corner. Yes. That-
Don't
that
bother
would-
her.
that
Let her
would
just
be
get
me.
through it.
So when they want to look for your projects on Kickstarter, they should look for Rebel Pictures, which is rebelpictures.net. They could look for Two for the Show. They could look for Michael McCallum.
Yep,
'Cause
confidence
those are-
of a tall man. Those kind of keywords.
Those kind of keywords, because
Yes.
the whole goal is let's see if we can get you on the front page of Kickstarter. That'd be
That's
nice
what
too.
we're hoping to. And one other project I wanted to mention is I'm delving into my first kind of foray into sci-fi. I'm going to do a short called Reverb in October. Kind of a side thing we're just trying to raise money for without doing a Kickstarter for that. It's in its preliminary stages in pre-production, but it's basically kind of like a Twilight Zone episode meets Telltale Heart.
Oh, cool.
So it's a character who is is having his conscience is getting to him. He's become a really bad alcoholic after a hit and run accident. So.
Well,
Nice.
many years ago, even before this was pre-2006, because it's not on YouTube, right? And there was no YouTube yet. I did the 24-hour New York City movie madness. It was a contest out of New York City. I had 24 hours to shoot the film, and I ended up with a sci-fi plot. And I persuaded my attorney to go ahead. We literally broke into a law partner's office and filmed it in there. So, yeah, sci-fi's fun. I had to go out to the toy store, buy a little alien, smash him, that kind of
What's
thing. Ran
the,
my car over him.
Since this is a radio show, what is the statute of limitations on that break-in?
I
Bonnie?
think I'm in good shape.
Okay,
This
just
was so
making
long
sure.
ago.
I've
They
never
didn't
heard
kill anyone.
I've never heard somebody talking an attorney into something. Usually it's the attorney talking them into, like, kudos.
I think it was called They Control Our Minds. It was a nice little movie.
Awesome.
So that was my only foray into feature films.
What did you think of that process of doing that for like the competition
I
festival?
liked it. I liked 24 Hours.
The like that's not a lot of time.
No,
That
no,
is-
and the film showed it. It was not only my first feature, it was my last feature. Well, we will be on the lookout for
Thank you
these
so
and
much.
future projects, and I hope everybody remembers Kickstarter. And a good segue is we're going to be introducing Dave Olds. We were talking about a Kickstarter that he's aware of. There's a Kickstarter program right now that's trying to archive the spacesuit worn by one of our astronauts. Is that right?
Yes, I saw this on Facebook. They, I guess we can't afford to preserve important things anymore, so the Air and Space Museum is using a Kickstarter campaign, and they had kind of a little faux pas. They said that they had the spacesuit of Lance Armstrong instead of Neil Armstrong. And I don't know how long
Hard to
that
come
was.
by.
Yeah, I don't know how long that was up.
It took all the performance-enhancing drugs to be able to walk on the moon. That's the tie-in.
Yeah.
I
So
was
anyway.
saying to Dave, this is what happens when you hire those summer interns, right? Because Michael will tell you it's a lot of work to
Oh,
put together
man.
a Kickstarter. After a while, your eyes cross trying to think of
no
new
one
prizes.
looked at it before.
Yeah, it's
It wasn't
unbelievable.
alive.
It's you would hope many people.
Like the
Well,
boss.
they did afterward.
Lance and Neil are two distinctly different people, too. I can't imagine that Mr. Neil Armstrong would have been very happy.
I'm just
with
glad
this.
they didn't put Stretch Armstrong. Like it could have been that.
Oh, God.
You know, it's interesting.
Didn't he go to space?
Yeah, he was in space twice.
His arms could reach around the planet. That's what-
Well, Dave Olds is here, and he's going to be doing a book reading this week. Can you tell
No,
us a little?
it's actually a week from tomorrow.
Oh, I'm sorry, I have the date.
That's all right. Next Tuesday.
So it'll be a week from tomorrow.
Yeah, the good people at Schuler Books in Okemos. There are going to be 4 of us, local author night it is, and 5 of us reading, me plus 4. And it's August the 11th, 7 to 8 p.m.
And which Schulers is this?
The Okemos Schulers.
The Okemos Schulers,
Yep.
out there by Meridian Mall.
Mhm.
And what is the name of the... I'm actually in the middle of your book.
Uh-oh.
Yes, I
Okay.
have it in my Kindle, but I lost my phone for a while, so I lost
right.
my place in the book. I got to pull it up again. Tell
I
us a little
appreciate
bit
that.
about your book.
My book's called Bulldog Blues, and it's about a news photographer in Detroit. He's kind of at the end of his career. He's very talented, but he's also kind of I don't know what the word would be. There's a lot of words to describe Denny. Denny Wright is his name. He's very eccentric. He's kind of a man-child. He's never really come to grips with his personal life. And so we follow him from assignment to assignment, and we hear about all of his crazy exploits through his career. And he pulls one prank too many at work and ends up almost losing his job. So during that time, the reason it's called Bulldog Blues is he has a bulldog named Churchill. And they get together and kind of, by hook or by crook, they find a way to become famous in the art world doing crazy photography. So I don't know how far you've gotten, Bonnie, but the twists and turns kind of...
I kept wondering about a few things. First
Yeah.
of all, there used to be a vet here in town who had a bulldog named Churchill.
Oh, I didn't steal that.
Oh, okay. I wondered about that because being a local, I thought maybe that's where that
No,
came from.
no.
But I was sure, of course. I mean, tell me about your career as a photographer and how much overlap is there between you and your protagonist?
Good question. Yeah, I started out really picked up a camera in 1972 when I was here here at LCC, and I went on to Michigan State. So I've been shooting since 72, 73. I worked for the State Journal for 12 years. I worked for United Press for 6, and somewhere else.
Did you shoot it all in Detroit, or did you shoot frequently
I
in
used to
Detroit?
shoot in Detroit quite a bit, and I have family in Detroit. Yeah, the book is based in Detroit, so
Yes.
I wanted to have Detroit as kind of an extra, more of a backdrop as a character to write, kind of use as a, I don't know, just an interesting added depth to the book. When I was with UPI, I'd spend time in Detroit covering things there. And all the assignments that he covers are pretty much assignments I covered.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, we follow him around. He covers Michigan State football game. He covers a big plane crash. He covers a gruesome murder trial.
See, it always seems so logical to me that I was going to do a detective series with a woman woman journalist, not a photojournalist, but a journalist, because it always seemed to me that they were a logical extension of the detective genre. That
I believe they are too. I'm always amazed that there's so few books written about photographers, because
Me too.
Photojournalists especially, every day you're meeting new people, you're going places. Throughout my career, I've been with dumpster divers, and I've been in the White House.
Wow.
Everywhere in between. So that's kind of
some
what I
are
enjoy.
one and the same. Sorry, that was too easy.
That was easy.
Nobody was
see that
going to
one
pick
coming.
that ball up. Okay, guys, come on.
David, one of the things you do very well in the book too is it's about the contemporary newspaper business spiraling downward, and it's
Yeah.
all tied in about how weird it's gotten.
Mm-hmm.
It's-
Yeah,
You're an
then-
endangered species as a photojournalist
Oh,
in a
absolutely.
newspaper nowadays.
Absolutely. Well, I started this book just after I got laid off in 03 and 09. And it gave me time to go through a lot of old journals that I'd kept for years. And I started putting them together, and I realized that really a memoir of Dave Oles wasn't going to be that interesting to anybody but me. So I decided to invent a crazy character, and it made it a lot more fun to write, and I think it makes it a lot more fun to read. So
Is he going
it's
to be a
definitely novel.
reoccurring character?
Yeah, actually, Denny does reoccur.
I was
Good
just about to
question,
ask
Bill.
that. I was just about to ask.
Yeah, it's funny how his next book, actually, I'm working on now, he ends up here in Lansing doing kind of what I do. He's a political photographer, so.
How old is the character, is the protagonist?
He's about 55 when we meet him. Yeah, he's at the end of his career. He's a dinosaur, is he?
Is it take place present day?
It takes place in about 05.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little way back.
One of the things that we've seen is that photojournalists, you had, I think, when I heard you speak, you were talking about your experiences at the Lansing State Journal. You gave a talk through the Historical Society.
Oh, yeah, right.
One of the things I was impressed by is that there was sort of an era of the black and white era, in the available light era, when 35 millimeter cameras came in, and all of a sudden you were freed from the old fashioned technology, and this whole wonderful new technology sort of liberated photographers. Henri Cartier-Bresson was able to go down the street and capture people as they were.
Yeah,
There
miniature
was
camera.
a real excitement about that, where
Yeah.
you could do creative things with photography. And I think that's an era that's gone. And I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about what were your influences, and what photographers shaped what the kind of photography you wanted to do, and how you combined that with a career.
Yeah, really, the greatest influence I had was Life magazine. For a lot of people in the late 60s, early 70s that got into photojournalism, that was kind of the standard bearer.
Gold standard.
Yeah, it really was. Some
And
of
the
the great.
Geographic, depending on what you're...
Yeah. But as far as news,
Yeah.
it was really, and my biggest memories of that whole era are the Vietnam images from Vietnam. That really changed public opinion in some ways.
Oh, absolutely.
Eddie Adams, who in fact started his career at the Battle Creek paper. He was an AP photographer in Vietnam. He's the one that photographed the general putting a bullet in the prisoner's head
Yes.
in Saigon. And there's also the shot of the napalm
The little girl
falling.
Kim Pho.
And those pictures really had a very deep impact on American society.
People saw war.
Yeah, they finally saw a war.
I was showing some of my students some of the daguerreotypes from
Oh.
the Civil War,
Mhm.
and showing them. That was curated by Matthew Brady. He didn't
Right.
really shoot them, But it brought home to people what war really looked like. We lost 600,000 in the Civil War. We forget the astounding numbers of that time.
Yeah.
I think about the civil rights movement. Patrick Michael O'Sullivan from Jackson was a life photographer who took some of the photographs when the schools were being desegregated in the South. My friend
Yeah.
Declan Hahn from Chicago was with Life and took pictures of the various protests. I mean, that was a black and white era, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it really captured history in a different way. A still photograph is so different than a moving photo. And I think an old black and white photo is a lot different than today's digital color.
Why
Which,
did you?
which of course I use. I mean, I think in '94 is when the State Journal first went to color for about 2 years, and then we went to digital, which was a very painful thing because it was so archaic back then. The machines were clunky and slow. And
I owned a Mavica. Remember those?
no.
There's nothing worse than a Sony Mavica. I think it
Mavica.
was 2 pixels.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it was probably like 2 bricks. The size of 2
Is
bricks.
this the science fiction end you're talking about?
I'd have been lucky.
Mavica?
The Sony Mavica.
I-
Look it up. It's very early.
Well,
You don't have it, do you?
It had a 3.5-inch plastic disc that went in the side.
Oh,
the
yeah.
ones
It's
that
like
you
the
could
Kodak
use in your
disc.
computers.
It
Yes.
actually I think it probably had a spinning hard drive in it.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and
Kodak
that's-
made one similarly,
Yeah.
which I have on it's a doorstop in my office.
So who were your? Where did you study? How did you?
Well, I started here at LCC. I had, it was so funny, I studied with a gentleman named Roger Ward, who was also the LCC photographer. And there was a dark room in one of the old houses here in the basement. And I think about 4 of us could fit in there. But as soon as I put a print into a developer and saw it come up, I was hooked.
Me
I just
too.
loved it. And really, out at Michigan State, I studied with Justin Kestenbaum, who I consider a real mentor. And then I was lucky enough I left Michigan State and went to Arizona State. And,
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it was just because it was an A. I got as far as A's in the book as far as schools that had photography. I stopped at Arizona. But it worked out really well because the teacher out there, his name was Bill Jay. He was a British photo historian. And he had just come to the States to finish his degree, and he had interviewed just about every famous living photographer you've ever heard of, like Diane Arbus and
Yeah.
all the European photographers like Bresson and all the Magnum photographers. And Bill was a fascinating teacher, a wonderful guy. And he got me involved, a lot more interested in photo history. His expertise was Victorian, and he probably wrote about 15, 20 books. He passed away a few years ago. But Bill's buddy and cohort over in Wales was starting a new photo program, and he said, why don't you go over there? And so on his recommendation, I was able to go to Newport, Wales and study with David Hearn, who was a Magnum photographer. People don't know about Magnum. It's probably the most prominent photo cooperative of photographers. It was put together by Cartier-Bresson and a couple other guys after World War II.
Magnum and Black Star were the
Yeah.
2 biggies.
Yeah, Robert Capa.
Yeah.
And can't think there were 2 others. Don't have it in my brain anymore.
Jean-Louis Sieff.
No.
No?
But the Magnum group is still very prestigious, and they really were the ones that led the charge with great magazine photography after World War II. And so David taught me a lot. I spent a year on the road covering things over there, and I decided that I really wanted to do newspaper work, so I came back here to do that. Ended up with the Mount Pleasant Morning Sun before I came to the Journal.
Wow.
So
Magnum was a magnificent enterprise. I knew when Jean-Louis Sieff, the fashion photographer, was part of that group. The son of the Minister of Health in France was one of his assistants. He came here and studied at U of M. And when I put in my darkroom, he agreed to help me set up my darkroom. And it was kind of funny because I had visited his apartment once, and just to show you what a real plebeian I am, I was admiring one of the prints on his wall when he was house sitting for a friend, and I said, kind of, just look at the colors on that No, it was an original Matisse. It was not a print. They come from a rarefied world.
It's original Matisse.
I mean, good Lord. Yeah, so I realized, no, he would do things like he would
Please put it back on the wall.
Yeah,
back
right.
on the wall, yes. Don't smoke that cigarette.
Right. That glass of grape juice, set it
Yes,
far
yes.
away.
It was a rarefied world, and I think
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
it was a brilliant way to try to tell the story of the world through black and white photography. I know I spent a lot of time I had a court case settled, so I bought myself a Pentax camera and a darkroom, and I had never shot any pictures or developed any film, and just spent a weekend trying to learn how to do all that. So I would go down to Detroit back then and do ruin porn. There was even ruin
really?
porn back in the 60s, I can tell you.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Do you still have that Pentax?
everything burned in the Great Fire of '85, so I don't have any.
I have an
videos.
old Pentax.
Do you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
early 70s.
Couldn't afford that Nikon. Were you a Nikon person?
No, I started with Canon.
Oh wow! See,
That's unusual.
yeah, it is.
It is? Why?
Oh, I think so.
I love Canons.
Must
That's
be
what
My
I got.
my brother-in-law brought a Canon back from Vietnam, so he handed it to me and said, "Here, you're better than I am." So that's when I started.
You're listening to LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We're talking with Dave Olds, and there's nothing worse than getting old photographers together to talk about all the lenses. My favorite lens I have.
No, it's so fascinating. I've always been an amateur photographer. I did a short film about photographers called Shooters that was back in 2004, shot in Detroit. And the director had given me this old Pentax just to kind of use it and get used to using it. And I'm very hands-on as an actor and a performer, so I still have that camera. And my father and I took a trip out west in October for a friend's wedding, and I brought that with me and just took a bunch of majority black and white photographs, during that trip.
Wow.
So it's just gorgeous.
Have you found, though, that over time people are much more skittish about having their photograph taken nowadays than they were in the past?
Oh yeah, just during the years that I was active at the State Journal, I remember we used to go out and do found features. We'd find kids playing in the street or something. And I remember early in my career in the 70s that you could just kind of sneak up and get a few pictures, and then you might ask them where their parents are and go get their IDs and stuff. But you can't. There's no way you could do that anymore. You can't really just start taking pictures.
Parents would be horrified.
Yeah, and
I was taking pictures of the kids at the park on the first day of snow sledding. Mother came screaming at me, yelling, "You're a pedophile!" What?
Right.
Apparently, I had been shooting for a few years, didn't realize how much it had changed.
Yeah, it has, and it's the other thing that's changed that I've noticed. I mean, I don't shoot news anymore. I'm doing mostly portrait photography and photographs of senators at this point. But when I go to a news event and kind of get back into my news eye and start shooting it, I realize I'm taking pictures of everyone taking pictures with their cell phone.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
It's hard to keep a cell phone
out of a news photo.
a major news
Really
photo.
is.
Yeah.
And keep it from blocking parts.
Yeah.
The important parts
So-
is they put it up there to
Yeah,
fight
so
with each
that's
other.
really it's a sea change, and things have changed in a lot of different ways, obviously. But my thing about the old days black and white photography was that a photographer had to have a huge skill set,
Oh, they did.
and just the darkroom work itself was an art and a craft. And
Especially doing
There
it
were
fast.
There
Yeah.
were master printers who did only the dark work.
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
case. Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I was watching James Noctway, in his in the documentary film that Christian Fry did on him.
Oh,
working
yeah.
with the master printer.
War
They
Shooter, or what is it? The newer one, or how old is it?
This was the one called War Photography.
Yeah, I've seen that. It's incredible.
Magnificent.
Yeah.
It's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And what they did was they outfitted James Noctway, who's probably one of the finest photographers, living photographers
Oh, yeah.
right now. They outfitted his camera with a camera, so
Right.
you could see what he was seeing as he shot it. And one of the things that was so incredible about him, as we were talking about getting people to let you photograph them, he had this astounding stillness in him where he could go right up to a grieving mother who was waiting there in Yugoslavia as they're bringing her dead son in the casket. And it is as if she almost embraced him and made him part of the family to take those pictures.
Yeah.
There was something special that photographers were able to do, I think, in that the height of that era to develop a real rapport
Yeah.
and show the real life stories of people.
Yeah.
Just
He's been
astounding.
everywhere. He's an amazing
So there
photographer.
probably couldn't be a Diane Arbus today.
Ethically, you couldn't at all.
No, not at all. Well, no, she crossed every line you could, yes.
Yeah, she went into mental institutions and
Couldn't be done.
photographed disabled people. I mean, it's just so difficult nowadays. It's even difficult. I went out to what was a home on the west side of Lansing that worked with disabled people. It was a residential facility, and took pictures there years ago. You would never get the permissions to do
No.
that anymore.
No.
In fact, I think one of the things we've lost is that Nakwe was talking about the fact that he wanted to go into more American prisons than he was ever able to do. I mean, we don't
I
see the
imagine.
things on the inside.
That's like never.
No, in fact, Michigan was at the forefront, the Department of Corrections, in shutting out photographers who you just, you know.
Well, yeah, and one reason I believe is that about 1983, might have been earlier than that, a free press photographer,
Taro Yamasaki.
Taro Yamasaki, went into Jackson, and the guards, I don't think they looked the other way, they just didn't care, and he got a lot of time with prisoners showing their battle scars and their shivs, and when that,
And the drugs.
yeah, and the drugs, and
After the warden had said there are no drugs or knives in my prison.
right. And he won a Pulitzer for that.
Yes, he
and,
did.
That's when they changed a lot of ways of thinking. Actually, I mentioned that in my book.
Oh, do you?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna say, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't use Taro's name, but I do mention a Pulitzer Prize winner that went into a prison. I say it's Marquette, I believe. But yeah, I used a lot of
That was
those
SMP,
anecdotes.
yeah. Southern Michigan prison.
Yeah, it
they
was
went into, yeah.
that he did.
Yeah.
But I was in Jackson a few times for a few different assignments, and it's not a fun thing. It's when that door closes behind you. I don't care if you're who you are. It has an effect on you.
What
You know,
years were
I,
you there?
I believe in Marry Early, Marry Often, and husband number 2 was before a while a guard at SMP.
Oh,
And he said the only difference between me and the prisoners is I did my time in an 8-hour stretch.
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
true, because I think the guards, the corrections officers felt equally as imprisoned.
Yeah, I
Tough
can't
environment.
imagine that gig. That would be something. I think I was there. I was at the State Journal, and we did a story on he was like a prison. He did a Christian outreach. Probably would have been the mid-'90s.
Very
Wow.
tough environment. But those
Yeah,
are the kinds of stories that
fascinating
I
though.
wish we still did. It's ironic that we're getting into the idea of the body cams now and all of this. We do see the moving
Oh,
images.
Changing society.
But there's
It's
something
amazing.
very different about a still image.
Yeah, yeah.
It is a different medium. What is it that... Have you ever been able to put your finger on why it is that somehow it hits us differently?
I just think a still image has a whole different effect because we're able to really study one little
Static.
slice of time. I was thinking the other night, if you go into a photo gallery with like 100 photos, you're probably looking at about 2 seconds of real time. I mean, every photo is a 200th of a second or a
Oh,
500th.
that's right.
So on the walls, all over these photos, you really it
That
adds up
is
to 2
unless they have
seconds.
daguerreotypes.
Okay, you have to throw in the old stuff.
Which reminds me, there are still photographs you're looking for your exhibit. Did you want to give us a quick list of the ones?
I will do that. One of the things that seems incomprehensible that we can't find easily is the 1967 snowstorm,
That seems so
which
strange.
seems everyone in Michigan took a photograph of.
They must have.
We would like to find photographs of Sully's Drive-In, which was in Lansing.
Ah.
It was one of the old drive-ins.
Did it have girls on roller skates?
No, that was,
Oh.
Yeah,
it may
that's-
have very, very early, but we're looking at the 60s. So.
Yeah, that's a corner of Waverly and Saginaw where
Yes.
the Wendy's is now. My
Yeah.
father,
Really?
has a lot of stories of that
Well,
place.
Sully's,
Any
yeah.
photos?
Yes, no photos, but I can ask him. Sure.
Ask around, please.
He's listening right now, so start digging.
We're looking for photographs of Lake Lansing Amusement Park, showing people on the rides and also in the arcade.
And in the carousel.
And especially the
Oh, the
carousel,
carousel, yeah.
which is still in existence. It's not at Cedar Point anymore. It is, I forgot where they moved it from Cedar Point. So there are some, we're looking for also unusual or interesting Polaroids.
Oh, Polaroids. All of those that didn't make it if you didn't get the gummy stuff on it fast enough.
That was an experience. That's sort of the modern selfie when you think about it
Sure,
in some ways.
yeah.
I mean,
What
weren't
kind
you-
of Polaroids are you looking for?
Either the early ones or the 1980 ones, it doesn't really matter.
They did have a camera called the Spectra that was kind of interesting. It spit out those little squarish type photographs. And my friend, who was one of the Black Star photographers and life photographer at Brownstone in Washington, what he did was he photographed all the little things on the way around his apartment, from the door handle to all of the little artifacts, and did it with a spectra and had them lead you in down the hallway to his apartment. Very
Oh,
clever.
wow.
I
Very
like-
clever man, yeah.
Yeah, setting
Well,
up those
look
kinds
at
of
Andy,
photo-
Andy Warhol did with Polaroids.
Yes, yeah.
And
Yeah.
now you wish you could buy one.
Yeah.
Have you mastered the selfie stick, Bill? Are you?
No, I will not use that. You know, the other day I saw someone, I was trying to catch someone using it in the state capitol, because they're not supposed to, because it's a stick. You can't take sticks into the state capitol. You can take guns, but not
Right.
sticks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or signs. But,
You could tape it to your gun.
Yeah.
Dear
But he was very self-conscious about letting me take a picture of him taking a picture with a selfie, and I didn't
What?
get it.
That makes no sense.
Uh,
Now, I wish I was there to take a picture of you
taking-
arguing with the guy as this is like an Escher thing at this point.
Incredible, yeah.
Much to my amazement, I heard that you can now take photographs in the Chicago Museum of Art.
Most museums are doing that now.
Are they now?
Yeah, they've really changed their whole attitude. Before it was
Because you
them-
can take a selfie now with Nighthawks.
Well, when we were in New York 2 years ago, I forgot, it was, I think it was a Renoir everybody was taking. You couldn't see the Renoir because there were so many people in front of it
See,
taking
that's the problem.
selfies.
Oh my
That's the
gosh.
problem.
I think the main thing was they didn't want flashes. I think in the past
Because it
that was
deteriorated them, yes.
If they just with your cell phone, their cameras are pretty clear on it. That in lighting, you know.
Yeah, and how are you going to
Wow.
confiscate every camera anyway? Every cell phone.
man.
today?
Well, I want to thank
I don't
Dave
want that
Oates and
job.
Michael McCallum for joining us this evening. We've had an eclectic conversation about all sorts of creative arts, visual for the most part, but upcoming book reading a week from tomorrow at the Meridian Mall Schulers, and tune in next Monday night at 7 o'clock for Lansing Online News Radio. We'll be doing a special show with guests talking about both Ta-Nehisi Coates' new book, Between Two Worlds, and also talking about Black Lives Matter. So join us next Monday at 7 o'clock. This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. Thank you for listening.